Welcome back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading. Today we're going to be going out with our little Mini Mac 35, about a 74-75 model here. Early one with no safety features, and we're going to be dropping a tree. And we'll talk about the saw a little bit and show the base of the tree when we're done, and show some other stuff that we're going to be doing today. Well, I just wanted to talk a little bit about dropping the tree there. Equipment I had as far as the ladders and stuff was kind of inadequate because the ladder I was using to go up the tree was too short, and the other one I have was way too big. So you got to use what you have. So everything has a positive and a negative to it. Well, the negative is that when I was cutting the tree off, I was getting a face and shoulder full of sawdust. And the good part of it is I got first-hand smell of that fresh fir tree. Oh man, that smelled good, just like Christmas. So anyway, this is a 14-inch bar, and measures a foot at the base where I cut it. So you know, you have just a little teeny bit left here of cutting. And now this chain on here is your standard chain, and if you watch closely when I'm cutting, I'll be pulling the saw back a little bit as it starts to slow down just a little teeny bit. It's not because of a lack of power, it's because this type of chain in fir clogs up in there, so I just pull it back a little bit to clear the sawdust out and then go back in, because you know, this little bitty saw, as you can see, is really powerful. It's my favorite little saw. I do have one other slightly more powerful, which is my Frontier, but it's really hard starting and more finicky than this one. So anyway, I know it says right there Eager Beaver, but it's not. It's just a cover off a later saw. When I got this, the guy had ruined the starter pulley on it from abusing it. But anyway, just one of the tips with one of these is anytime you go cutting, don't forget your screwdriver to adjust the carburetor, because like I say, they are finicky. They'll need to be adjusted quite a few times sometimes, especially on warmer weather. I try to not do any cutting in warm weather with these because they have a tendency to vapor lock and whatnot. But you know, the nice thing about this thing, it's only 9.5 pounds with a bar and everything, and it's easy to start and powerful. And it's my favorite little mini saw. Well, here's the next step. We're going to take the branches off that tree and turn them into nice kindling. So I built this for doing this type of work, small stuff here. and I did a video on it, so if you're interested in how I did it and why, you can go back and look at our older videos. And I talked about this little table here too. I bought it at a junk store, and it's an ideal thing for setting a saw on between cuts. And then I like wearing a glove on the hand I'm using on a wood, and I like a nice grip on the saw. So anyway, we'll get started here. So you can see how fast and efficient that is. If you watch closely, right before the cut's finished, I let off the throttle and let the momentum of the chain do the cut, the last part of it, and then when you're through with the chain speeds way down, makes it a lot safer. So anyway, over here is the file. I'll do one last thing here. We'll just talk real briefly about the saw here. This has been in lots of my videos. It's a Mini Mac 35 from about 1975, I believe. 33cc. You can see that for a little bitty saw, it's got lots of horsepower and even got a fair amount of torque. I mean, it cuts through just about anything. I like this about better than any small saw I have because the lightweight's 9.5 pounds. But you know, the neighbor guy was over the other day and he didn't see that I had a saw out, and he says, well, you know, if you're going to do some cutting or drop that tree, I got a saw you can use, which he had was a Stihl 025. And I said, no, I actually have one too, but I said I prefer this little saw. And looks at it, said, boy, that saw's really old. I said, how can you use it? He said, don't you ever use it or anything? And I said, yeah, I've been using it for 30 plus years. I've never had to rebuild it or do anything other than typical maintenance work, but that's the key, is really good maintenance. And the other thing too is, you know, I did a video about oils a while back, and the oil I use in these saws hasn't been available for a long time. I bought out a complete warehouse of it years and years ago, and I'm just about out of it. And so I've been experimenting with Echo Red Armor and a couple others just to see if they're as good or not. But the thing is that little saws or small engines in general, outboard motors, older ones, you know, the EPA said, oh, we got to make them run cleaner. You know, so this saw, they said you can run 40 to 1, which is a mistake, because a little bitty engine like this and as much power it has, it really works hard, and so 40 to 1 is not enough oil. So, you know, there's people argue about, oh, this oil is better than that one, blah blah blah. Well, they can argue all they want. Here's the proof in the pudding. My stuff lasts forever, and I run 24 to 1 in these, and then my vintage outboard motors too, the ones that have bushing crank bearings. You know, can't run a thin oil on, which wears them out. Later engines where they had ball and roller main bearings on them, you can run 40 to 1. But anyway, the oil I use doesn't make carbon, and it's biodegradable, and that's something a lot of people don't think about too. So, you know, like I say, there's lots of people's views on oil, so they can argue all they want, and I'll just keep cutting while their saw's in the junkyard. See you later. Back with more vintage stuff soon.